There's no temptation, but deliver us. Okay, let's begin. So for some reason, I can't click play on the Google Slides and then just have like a normal presentation. So I'll have to just keep scrolling. Anyway, today's lesson is on how to prepare a Sunday school lesson. How to prepare a Sunday school lesson. And first, I want to talk about what is the ultimate goal? What is the most important thing that we're trying to deliver? You know, what we need to keep in the back of our minds. And the most important thing is to lead children to know, love, and follow God, and to love the church as well. Okay, so to love God and to love the church. Sunday school is not babysitting, it's not entertainment, and it's not just a school. You know, school, they're not looking for your transformation, your spiritual transformation. They're giving you material to learn, they test you on it. Sunday school is not a regular school. It's not about just giving information out. It's about a true transformation and leading the children to know God, and to love His church. The servant-child relationship, again, we don't call them students. We call them disciples. What's the difference between a student and a disciple? A student, again, they have a teacher. They're learning information. A disciple models his way of life after the servant, or we would say the master, technically. But it's, you know, when you go to school and you're learning, you're a student and you have a teacher. Are you going to see like how they live their lives and you try to imitate the way they live their life? You know, your professor might be a great professor, but maybe you don't want to imitate his life. In Sunday school, we call them disciples because it's not just the information that we teach them. We have to be examples to them as well. So they're actually learning how to live by, by the interaction that we have with them in Sunday school. So we want to be friends with them, but again, with boundaries. There has to be respect and authority. You can't just be, you know, you don't try to be like, okay, I want to be the favorite servant. I want to be the servant that everyone loves. So I'm just going to be so friendly, so nice. You still have to have that boundary line, and there still has to be respect and authority. Actually, when we were young, when I was in Sunday school at my church, the priest implemented a system where all of the Sunday school servants were called Bason and Tassoni. Tassoni is my sister, and Bason is my brother. So you wouldn't be just Brandon, you would be Bason Brandon. It's kind of like saying like Mr. Brandon. And, you know, we don't have to implement like a certain system, but the point is we want to have a good relationship with them, but we don't want to have, you know, they're walking all over us, they're treating us like they would just any other kid in class. That's not the way it is. There has to be respect and authority. And again, the most important thing is transformation, rooting the kids in God and in the church, and giving them an identity of children of God. That's the core purpose, the most important thing of Sunday school. The qualifications of the servant, first of all, love of God. So we ourselves have to have a relationship with God, with the church. We have to be confessing regularly. We have to be partaking of the Eucharist. We're not required to be, you know, genius theologians or whatever it is, or, you know, the kids love my lessons, or that's not what matters. The most important thing is, am I a spiritual person? Because that's actually what transmits, kind of like through osmosis. Like if you think back when you were a little kid, do you remember any of your Sunday school lessons, like the lessons that the teachers gave you? You probably remember the teachers and what you thought of them, like how they made you feel, how they carried themselves, were they spiritual people? And that was transmitted to you, not necessarily through a lesson, simply through the interactions they had with you. That's what we really care. So, you know, like in Greek philosophy, they talk about the ethos, the pathos, the logos. If you're delivering a message, like a powerful speaker, ideally would have logos, pathos, and ethos. The logos is, you know, the logical portion that hits the brain. The message has to be logical. There has to be information in it. But there also has to be pathos, which is hitting the heart. So the mind and the heart are affected. It's a powerful message that moves you. But then there's also the ethos coming from ethics, the person himself that's delivering the message. You know, it could be Pope Shenouda delivering a message, and then someone could just copy the exact same sermon he gave and he delivers it, and it doesn't have the same ethos. Because the ethos is about the person, the way you carry yourself, the way you're seen. Are you a spiritual person? Are you speaking from experience, or is this just head knowledge? Is this just a lesson that you prepared 5 minutes ago and you're presenting to the kids? So the kids can easily tell, they can easily notice, and for my, for my own edification as well, I have to make sure I am a spiritual person. I first and foremost have a love of God. Secondly is a love of kids. You know, we shouldn't be in Sunday school if we don't love the kids that we're serving. So it has to be genuine care. It's not just, a checklist. I check off a few things. I do a few things. I have to have true, genuine love for the kids that I serve. And that's why it won't feel like a huge burden. If I truly love the kids, I'll go to work and I'm still thinking about my Sunday school kids. I'll go do whatever. You could be exercising or on a run, and you're still thinking of your Sunday school kids, because it's a true love. It doesn't feel, when they say if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. You know that saying? It's kind of like that. Like if you truly love the service, you truly love the kids, it won't feel like a burden. Moving on, preparation. So, am I preparing the morning of, or during liturgy, am I still like cramming, trying to prepare my Sunday school lesson? Or did I take time to try to understand the lesson, to apply it to myself? The best thing to do is maybe 2 weeks out, 1 week out would be at the very latest. Try to at least begin looking at the lesson and preparing the lesson. It doesn't have to be complete or finished 2 weeks out, but you should at least start thinking about it. Every class has maybe 5 or 6 servants, so you might only be giving the lesson every so often. And so every so often you'll give a lesson. It's not every single week. So when you know that you're on the schedule, you know that when the week that you're supposed to be giving the lesson, prepare ahead of time and try to live the lesson. Try to see, okay, we're talking about patience. Maybe I'm not a patient person. This is an opportunity for me to try to live the life of patience. So when I'm speaking experientially. It's not just theoretical. And it takes a long time to prepare a good lesson. The kids can tell. You're going to be able to tell while you're delivering the message, did you put in enough effort? Or the crafts or whatever it is, age specific, was it done well or not? It has to be a personalized service. So we're serving people individually. You're not just serving the class, like this vague idea of a class. Like if you're, imagine like a big lecture hall in college and you're speaking to 300 people. That's not how Sunday school is. It's an individual service. You might be giving a lesson to the whole class, but the more important service, the fundamental service, is the one-on-one relationships you have with each individual kid. That's what really matters, a personalized service. I need to know every kid by name. It's bad if the Sunday school servant, if I ask a servant, how many kids are in your class? And you just give me a blank stare, you don't know. You need to know the exact number. You need to know them by name. In the back of everybody's agbeya, and I recommend you use a physical agbeya, you write down every single kid's name in your agbeya, and you should pray for them daily. Every time you stand up to pray, you should pray for your kids every single day. We used to sometimes have the list of the kids' names and all the servants and the coordinator and everyone, and sometimes laminate it, and we would pass it out to all the servants. Maybe this is something you can do in each group lead or coordinator. But you need to write it down. You need to pray for your co-servants, for your coordinators. So this should be something that, just automatic. We know their names, we know their interests, we know their struggles, we know everything about them. And sometimes you have to take an interest in things that you're not interested in. Maybe you don't like video games or, sports or whatever it is, but your kids do. And when you're talking to them, you have to take an interest in the things that they like. So we're not giving the lectures to a big class. We're serving individual children. Also, commitment. I have to be committed. Is this something I just do? I just show up, and then right after, I'm like, okay, we just finished. Let me go leave, hang out with my friends. Again, does it feel like a burden? Or if I have a true love for the service, a true love for the kids, it won't feel like a burden. This is something I want to do. I want to invest time. I want to spend time preparing the best lesson for them and the best things for them and the best field trips for them, the best everything for them, because I truly care. I truly love them. So the commitment, sometimes it's hills and valleys. We're not always like on fire and, full of holy zeal, but at the same time, that's why commitment is important. Even if I don't feel it, I know I still have to do it. And also the kids will notice. The kids will notice if I'm putting in effort or not. Before you prepare anything, always start with prayer. If the coordinator tells you next week you have the lesson, or 2 weeks from now you have the lesson, and you immediately start sitting down or jotting ideas or listening to something or reading something, it betrays an arrogance. Like, I am going to do this. I am going to give a good lesson. The kids love when I do this. The kids love when I give this lesson. The kids love stories. I'm going to put this. First and foremost, this is God's lesson. This is God's service that He's called us to. So first we invite God into the service. This is not something I'm going to do. This is not something, like I'm going to perform like a magic trick to them and they're suddenly going to love God. It's much more important than the actual lesson, the actual 1 hour I'm presenting, I'm speaking, I'm doing a craft, whatever it is. It's much more important than that. So it requires prayer to bring God in. You can, like if you're visiting a kid, maybe you'll go in and you don't say anything special. You just read the Bible with them. And that could have a huge effect on them. You don't know exactly what's happening. But it's God working, the power of God, the power of God's word. So relying on the Holy Spirit, not our own efforts. Pray before you speak in class. Many examples in the Bible. What's a famous example? Someone was about to go speak to the king, and immediately he prayed in his heart. Nehemiah, when he was about to go request from the king that he returns back to Israel to rebuild the walls, it says, right before he went up to speak to him, he prayed within his heart. This is something we should do before we do anything. We should always pray to God that He goes before us. So the work is God's. The lesson is God's. So the structure and the flow, you speaking doesn't need to be a full hour. There's a structure. There's 5 minutes intro, and this is different for every class. This is maybe geared towards like the little kids. Story and engagement, teaching, activity, craft. So make sure you're following. Get with your coordinators and the group leads. Make sure you're following this, because there should be, for every single class, we want the kids to memorize the prayers. So for the very little kids, maybe they only have Our Father. The next level after that, it's like Our Father and Thanksgiving. After that should be Our Father, Thanksgiving, Psalm 50. The older kids. So every class should have a specific prayer, and the coordinators will tell you about that. But again, quality is more important than quantity. It doesn't need to be a very long lesson, but the quality is what really matters. Spiritual depth. And again, we're not simply trying to relay information. It's not, to go to heaven, you don't need to like have intellectual assent of the Trinity. It's a true transformation. It's about the heart. We're changing hearts. That's the business we're in. We're working on getting people to have a love of God, a desire for God. Romans 12:2, renew your mind. Do not be conformed to the world, but transformed through the renewing of your mind. So every lesson should be transforming the kids. And also, am I bearing witness from my experience? Do I have any experience on this? That's why it's good to prepare early, and maybe if you're giving a lesson on humility, to practice humility, to practice putting yourself last, to practice not thinking of myself, extinguishing my ego, not giving in to my desires. So whatever the lesson is about, practicing it. And again, it's not hypocrisy if I haven't achieved exactly what I'm teaching. Like if someone is teaching a lesson on love, have we achieved perfect love? Am I qualified to teach on love? So it's only hypocritical if I hold myself to a different standard. I'm telling the kids to do X, Y, Z when I don't even try to do X, Y, Z. So if I am trying and I'm failing, I'm falling short, that's not hypocritical. But if I'm not trying, I'm not holding myself to that same standard that I'm holding it, then it is hypocritical. So we have to have spiritual experience. 1 John 1:3, St. John writes, we proclaim what we have seen and what we have heard. So it's not something that we're just teaching. Again, it's not academic knowledge. We're not just teaching them, in 325 AD, this council happened and this and that. It's not that. That's not what Sunday school is. So we proclaim what we have seen and what we have heard. And actually the first verse says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard And St. John is saying, we heard Christ. And he says, which we have seen with our eyes, we saw Christ, which we have looked at and our hands have touched. They lived with Christ and they touched him. This we proclaim concerning the word of life. It's a very, very beautiful verse. Acts chapter 2, when St. Peter gave his first sermon, 3,000 people were converted, and it says they were cut to the heart. They were cut to the heart because it was a spiritual message. And if you read the sermon, it's in Acts chapter 2. There's nothing, grand or special about it, but it's because of the person of Peter, and it was a spiritual message, and it cut them to the heart. So teach from overflow. Don't teach from emptiness. We ourselves have to be filled, and then we teach. Okay, the lesson has to be student-centered. Stories, especially for young kids, it calms them down, it teaches them, it gets them engaged. But also, what's very important is engaging them, so letting them speak. I know I'm not doing this today because we're really short on time, but in a good lesson, what you have to do is get the kids to answer questions, to engage, to speak. What we used to do, actually, I think we did it for a full year. This was for 9th and 10th graders. We got them to give the lesson every single week. So every single week, we would pair the servant and a kid, and they would give the lesson together. They would prepare 2-3 weeks out. And we did this for a full year, and it actually worked out really well. So every week, there was one of the kids that was giving the lesson alongside the servant. And it got the kids so engaged, because the kids, they're used to hearing from you guys as servants. But when they're hearing from one of their peers, and they know eventually they're going to be going up there, and then they realize how annoying it is for the kids to talk when the servant, because they're experiencing it now. They're trying to give a lesson, and maybe their friends are talking. So it's a very useful thing. The point is getting them engaged, getting them involved, getting them to speak. And it doesn't have to be the whole lesson, but it can be parts of the lesson. And obviously, if you're going to do this, it has to be through your coordinator and group lead, and also coordinated very well to make sure they're doing it right. But the best lessons are conversations, dialogues. Lessons have to be biblical and liturgical. Biblical and liturgical. So, of course, biblical, it's the power of God, and it's much more important to preach from, using biblical verses, quoting biblical verses, using parts of the Bible, stories in the Bible, characters in the Bible. That's, of course, very important and fundamental to Orthodox teaching. But not only that, it can't just be biblical teaching. In the Orthodox Church, it's such a rich church. We have the liturgy, we have the church fathers, we have the saints of the church, the rites, the asceticism and monasticism. All of these things have to be included. A good lesson would actually include all of these things. In some way, you'll include the Bible, you'll include something we do in liturgy, you'll include patristics, you'll include the rites of the church, you'll include everything. A really well-rounded lesson. It doesn't apply, of course, to every single lesson, but most good lessons will include all of these things. How are the saints of the church involved? It would be a tragedy if a Sunday school servant goes from kindergarten, or a Sunday school kid goes from kindergarten all the way till 12th grade. They graduate, and they still feel like they don't have a connection with a specific saint. So that's why we have to integrate them into the life of the church. They have to know specific saints that they love, that they use as for intercession. So again, this is your responsibility as Sunday school servants. You have to get the kids truly connected to liturgy, truly connected to the sacrament of confession, where it's normal for them to confess every month or two. It's normal for them to when they're going through something difficult, even a difficult exam at church or at school, to call on the intercession saint. So this is our role, to really teach them and guide them this way. They have to have a deep love for God and his body, which is the church. Otherwise, if it's shallow, these are the kids that fall away. Once they hit 18, they hit college, they're going to fall away if we don't instill this into them. We have to root them into the church and give them a true love of God, a personal connection with God. Because it could be the opposite, where they just come to church, maybe they have perfect liturgical attendance, but then they don't have this personal love of God. It has to be both. Otherwise, they fall away. It's not just stories that we're giving these kids. So connection and love. I'm sure you all heard the saying, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. So, the person giving the lesson could be a genius, knows every single thing. This is the best Sunday school servant ever. The kids don't care. But if you have a connection with them, you took them out for ice cream once, you went on to a field trip, you took them out, you visited them at home, the kids know you, they have a connection with you, then they care a lot more about what you're actually trying to tell them. They care a lot more, even if you're correcting them and rebuking them, like maybe they're being, disruptive, and you want to correct them, you want to tell them, it's not appropriate to behave this way. They won't listen to you unless they actually care, and they know that you care, and you have this connection. So that's why it's very important to have this connection when you visit them at home, you're seeing them outside, you're playing sports with them, you're taking them on field trips, we're doing spiritual days. That's where you really connect with them. You're going on a retreat, it's a 3-day retreat. We're going on monastery trips, whatever it is, we're connecting with them outside of Sunday school class. When you see them, greet them personally, greet them by name, know their names, know their interests, visit them. Again, like I mentioned, spiritual days, field trips, sports, all these things matter. And what we do, you guys are Sunday school servants, so your service is Sunday after liturgy. But also what happens Saturday night is extremely important, and it's important for all of us to attend Saturday night. One, because we're examples to them. So we should be attending Vespers and, at least the first part of midnight prayers and praises. But also because that 2-hour period in the middle, the kids are going, they have snacks in the back, they have hymns class, then they have sports and activities and games, then they have a Bible class. It's a full 2 hours and 15 minutes where the kids are in church. We could be seeing them during this time. We could be playing games and sports with them during this time. We could be maybe attending the hymns and Bible class with them. We're attending Vespers, and we're an example to them. We see them, we're passing by them. We say, we greet them by name. We're attending midnight praises with them. So even Saturday night, I would say, is very, very important for you to see your kids. Okay, 5 more minutes. Routines and tools. Nicole spoke about this very nicely, the routines. Make sure, especially for the very young kids, there is a routine. Prayer, song, memory verse, and so on. The audio visual. It's good to utilize technology, but it's also good to sometimes get rid of technology and have a physical Bible and have physical Agbayas and have them touch these things and know how to, turn to the book of Daniel or turn to the book of Ephesians, to be acquainted with these things. So utilize technology when as needed, and also sometimes it's good to not utilize technology and have them have real tangible things. Christ, when he was teaching, he didn't teach about abstract things. He gave very tangible examples about trees and bread and fish and so on. So, the kids have screen fatigue. Let them touch, hear, see, and experience. When it comes to following up, check for understanding during the lesson. Sometimes it's not good to ask too many questions in the beginning of the lesson, because like Nicole was mentioning last time, sometimes the kids will answer with the wrong answer, and that's the answer that sticks in the kids. So if you say, like, do you know who knows the story of Jonah and the whale? If they raise their hands, tell them, that's good. We're just going to go over it quickly for those who don't know. And then start asking questions where they get to answer towards the end, after you've already delivered you can ask, of course, some questions in the beginning. I'm just giving you a general guideline. But follow up, check that they understood the lesson, check that they're following along with the lesson, make sure that they know what's going on. Also, after class, the follow-up, this is something today should be the deadline that we set. Me and the coordinators, we spoke about this, so you guys should all be aware of this now. After class, certain things have to be sent on the parents group. The lesson itself has to be sent. If it's a PowerPoint or a PDF or document, that needs to be sent to the parents. A few questions along with the answers need to be sent to the parents, so the parents, even on the way home, they can check with their kids. The parents can check the group, see the questions. What did you cover today? What was this person's name? What was that person's name? Whatever it is, and they have the answers right there in front of them. The memory verse needs to be sent. Something that's engaging, that's allowing the kids to do something throughout the week, and they send back maybe a video or a verse or whatever it is. Also, send something home if possible. Something physical, a craft, a picture of a saint, a worksheet, whatever it is. The more things that we engage, the more we engage the parents, and the more it's not just a Sunday thing, it's an entire week thing, the better. The lesson doesn't necessarily end as soon as we let the kids go. It should be a week-long lesson, and we're getting them, especially the older kids, give them assignments. Monday we were reading this chapter together. Tuesday, we were reading this chapter together. For pre-servants and some of the high school servants, what we used to do is we would have mentors and mentees. Let's say it's 15 kids and 5 servants. Each servant gets 2 or 3 kids. And every single night, we would do just a 5-minute FaceTime with all the kids. This was high schoolers, so they have phones. And we would just read the Bible every single night. Small little things like that you can do. But you have to interact with the kids, and there has to be something that's expected of them throughout the week. It's not just a Sunday service. All right, very quickly, common mistakes to avoid: making it about me. I want to give the best lesson. I want the kids to like me. I want the kids to think I'm the fun servant. It's not about me, it's about God. We draw them to God. And the problem with that is, if the kids are obsessed with you and then maybe you move to a different state or something, the kids can easily fall away. That happens a lot, especially with older kids like high school. So we're drawing them to God. We're just a medium. It's not about us. We want to disappear. We decrease, and God increases. The servants around me increase. Saying what they want to hear, that's a mistake. The correct way is speaking the truth in love. Sometimes we say, I know the church teaches this, or I know people will tell you this, or I know sometimes you hear we can't do these things, but I think it's okay. You don't have the authority to do that. We teach whatever the church teaches. So if it's not taught by the church, it's not allowed by the church, then you can have your personal opinion, just keep it in here and don't let it come out. If you disagree with something, that's fine, but don't teach it to the kids. You can speak to me about it or something else. That goes along with teaching my opinion, number 3. So saying what they want to hear and then teaching my opinion. Stick to scripture, stick to church. Number 4, a mistake is always having a gloom and doom message. Maybe that's necessary sometimes, but we want to talk about the love of God, the joy of God, the gladness that we will receive in our relationship with God and the saints. Number 5, poor preparation. What if I still haven't prepared my lesson? It's Sunday morning. Am I going to skip liturgy just so I can prepare my Sunday school lesson? What's more important, to receive the body and blood of Christ or to prepare my lesson? So good preparation. Again, the kids will notice, even little kids, they will notice how well everything is prepared. Prioritize worship. Be an example in liturgy, attending liturgy, so the kids can see you guys. Age-specific tips, and this will be an entire lesson that we'll go over. For pre-K and kindergarten, play, repetition, visuals are important. Elementary, stories and crafts. Middle school, discussions, real-life application. High school, you can do debates, mentorship, deep theology. Resources, I'll give you 4 books. All of them are by Pope Shenouda. Very good and very short. How to Relate to Children is actually a very nice book by Pope Shenouda. Spiritual Ministry or Spiritual Service. This is actually what we required the pre-servants to read this book and summarize it just to be admitted into the program. So it's a very fundamental book that we all should read. And there's actually another one called the Spiritual Minister or the Spiritual Servant. So there's a Spiritual Service and the Spiritual Servant. Holy Zeal by Pope Shenouda, beautiful book. And then The Release of the Spirit. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. There's a story that was written 3 parts before he was a monk, while he's a bishop, about the spiritual service. Anyway, and if you want more resources, there's a ton more books. Any questions? We have maybe time for one question. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with it. Talk with your coordinator and see. But again, I don't see anything wrong with that. And if you want to send a summary, that's fine. At least like screenshots of, like the curriculum from online. Because if you just send them, a 200-page PDF there, but if you screenshot a few, 2-3 pages or something that you covered that day, that's good. Even if you're covering a hymn in the class, or some of the classes are doing like a Coptic letter every week, or 2 Coptic letters or whatever, and then like a hymn or something like that, send that stuff along as well. I told the hymn servants on Saturday night, same thing, whatever hymn you're going over, so the parents can follow along. This is the hymn, here's a recording of it, here's the lyrics, even if it's a screenshot of Coptic reader, whatever it is. But keep the parents involved, keep them engaged. The bigger the divide between the kids and the servants and the parents, and especially as the kids get older, the worse it is. We want to keep all 3 parties very involved and aligned. The servants, the kids, and the parents. Okay, glory be to God forever. Let's end up in prayer.